Good evening. Welcome back to the Washington Outsider Report on the Coalition Radio. For those newly joining the program, my name is Irina Zuckerman, and I'm the editor-in-chief of the Washington Outsider. With us today, we have Dr. Eric Shiraev. He is co-founder of CARP, which is Character Assassination and Reputational Politics Lab at George Mason University. He's a professor. He's an author of numerous books on foreign relations, on politics, on character assassination. And today we'll be discussing a little bit about the academic approach to reputational management, reputational politics, to character assassination, and the new initiative to counter propaganda. What does that mean from the academic standpoint? Dr. Shiraev, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself and what drew you into this area for our audience?
Thank you, Irina, for inviting me. Nothing much to tell, just very simple and ordinary story. I was lucky to be invited to come to the United States a long time ago, back in the 1990s, the first wave of a post-Soviet migration there, from there to here in the United States. And I was lucky to get a scholarship to go to UCLA to attend the graduate program. And I was a psychologist. I was trained in psychology. I was even teaching briefly at Leningrad State University, or University of St. Petersburg, they call it today. Which was completely destroyed today by the policies and everything else, unfortunately, as academic institution. But then that was sort of a thriving academic institution then, and I just got to the United States, UCLA, and I was opening my eyes, looking around, and I saw a flyer on the wall. That time the internet was absent, virtually absent, and there was a flyer on some door just saying that's a political psychology seminar. James Sidanius, room 405, sign up, come, just visit. I said, okay, political psychology, something strange and weird. Let me go and check it out. And the fourth floor, I pushed the button, went upstairs, and there was a door slightly ajar. And I just simply bumped into this, and I saw a professor sleeping on top of his desk. Well, James Sidanius is my beloved late mentor. He later moved to Harvard. He was a head of African American Studies at Harvard, but at that time he was a freshly hired professor at UCLA, versus California, Los Angeles, and he was a head of political psychology program. And I was audacious enough and uncultured enough just to wake him up. Hey, this professor, wake up! I'm here. He was taking a nap, it's normal, maybe in just headphones and just meditating, maybe, but well, it was awful from my standpoint. But he got up, said, okay, don't worry, just who are you? I'm such and such. I am from former Soviet Union. I want to study political psychology. And he said, welcome. Okay, just welcome, just you're in. And that's how my acquaintance began. They quickly realized that my knowledge of psychology was not really great, because although I just I think I was well trained in psychology, but my training in experimental psychology, in empirical psychology, was dismal, just horrible, just I can say honestly. But my training and knowledge, my knowledge rather, in political science was quite like a C+ level. And they said, why don't you just start working in this field as a wink trained psychologist in the former Soviet Union, but we'll teach you more about political science. And this is about political behavior of leaders. It's about voting behavior. It's about opinion polls. It's about racism. It's about sexism. It's about anti-Semitism. It's about prejudice. It's about, well, want to do it? I said, yeah, train me, please do so. And this is the end of the story. And when I finished my UCLA studies, And I was hired at Oregon State University. They look at my transcripts, look at my documents and my resume, and so political psychology. They needed somebody to teach political science from a cultural perspective, and I was an easy choice for them because I was from former Soviet Union at Oregon State, that they had no idea. They have probably never seen any person from Soviet Union before. It's a small, well, it's a great college, Oregon State University, but it's in a very remote area of Oregon. And when I came there, that some of them even check out if I have a tail and horns. Once again, well, the guy came from Soviet Union, and I was assigned to teach political science classes, which I they told me I was qualified, but I thought I wasn't. So it took me hours and hours and hours in the library and just learning and studying and re-examining, and then so well that's it took off, and this is how it happened. Very unusual transformation. Honestly tell you that's most significant political psychology professors. For example, David Sears, who is a tenured, he still is tenured a professor of political science at UCLA. He never took more than, I think he took only one class in political science, 101, he said. He's a trained psychologist, but he's welcome to political science programs. Late Gerald Post from George Washington University, who was brilliant political psychologist. He came from psychiatry. He said he took only 2 classes in the fields of political science, but he is as a trained psychiatrist, medical doctor. He came to this field to analyze the behavior of political leaders around the world, and that's why he made his career 20 years at CIA, and more than 25 years as a teaching research professor at University of GW at University of Washington, George Washington University, excuse me, in Washington D.C. So this is how maybe unusual, but quite typical biographies are from my perspective in political psychology.
So in terms of understanding the behavior of political leaders, even for CIA, this is something that's a little bit mysterious, because we joked today about criminology back during the Cold War, about the attempts to guess what is going on behind closed doors in a fairly isolated country that very much was not an open society, and where the leaders took measures to not let their behavior be well known outside very close circles. How does one penetrate this level of information protection from an academic perspective when you are not only not privy to secret information from secret sources, but you have to rely on information field that is not always unbiased and frequently repetitive and self-referential?
Mm-hmm. Irina, it's really difficult. I'll say my fellow psychiatrist, also my fellow clinical psychologists in American Psychological Association, American Psychiatric Associations, both APAs, but we distinguish between two of them. They have established this rule long time ago about or like a rule or imperative that neither psychologists nor psychiatrists might evaluate anybody from a distance.
Mm-hmm.
So you must have seen your patient, your client before your eyes and conduct, we call it clinical interview,
Mm-hmm.
before you can make a professional conclusion about this person's condition. This rule was relaxed during COVID because that was almost inevitable. And today, under certain circumstances, yes, both psychologists, licensed psychologists, and they're licensed by each state, licensed psychologists and psychiatrists who are trained medical doctors, they can today just diagnose people through Zoom interviews or Skype interviews, and just this is allowed. Insurance companies go for it, but it was an extraordinary situation due to COVID, and now probably rules will be relaxed. But any attempts to evaluate political leaders from a distance should be seen with a grain of salt, and we are seeing them. However, I know there's emotional involvements in our assessments. when people wrote about Nixon and Reagan and Clinton, oh my goodness, about Trump. So it's lots of my fellow professionals would say, well, Eric, don't you see it? Don't you see it? But I say, well, I see whatever you said. Yes, I see it. However, still it's not professional to just, and papers were not published, by the way, assessing political leaders from a distant perspective, because you can publish in a popular magazine, you can go to podcast, you can do it and so it's the webinar for it, but that's done, that has been done. However, a highly respected academic journalist, I wouldn't find any article that would have based on an analysis of political leader from a distance. Not only were they political leaders secretive, and look at Soviet leaders, look at Chinese leaders, then look at many other political leaders. But today, look at Putin and look at Xi in China, how isolated they are from the world by them. Well, they did it themselves, and also their circles of protection, layers and layers of protection. We have no idea, or little idea rather, about what's going on within. Plus, they do have professional psychologists and sociologists, I believe, and psychiatrists who would advise them to spread disinformation about themselves, the rumors and assumptions, and this is a huge subject. I believe I can just touch on this a little bit later if we got time. So we deal with so many variables, and we cannot just hold on to just and understand and see them all to make reasonable and scientific predictions. But we deal with a fractured reality, and we give fractured assessments, Irina.
So under what circumstances do you believe there is value in such analysis? Where do you draw the line between speculation or just essentially unreliable and limited information, and situations where you can provide insights with a fair degree of certainty?
The line is also shifting up and down, left and right, so it's a dynamic process. Many factors are supposed to be taken into consideration. First of all, it's how reliable we need to see how reliable the information is. There was about a week ago, maybe wrong, 2 weeks ago. It's in December. There was an article in Wall Street Journal written by several authors, and Russian-speaking and non-Russian speaking authors, analyzing Putin's personality, rather his lifestyle and his style of management. And I found it useful because they used information from multiple sources, and also they will just sort of almost every sentence was accompanied by imaginary footnote. Well, we don't know exactly, but this is a statement. Or we heard from two people this and that. For example, that Putin gets up at 7 o'clock in the morning. Is it important? Maybe not, but still it is for just as a piece of information. Is it true or not? 7 o'clock is different from 10 o'clock in the morning, right? Or from 4 o'clock in the morning. May indicates if it's constant 7 o'clock in the morning, just day in, day out, weekends and Saturdays and Sundays and weekdays. Yeah, it's interesting. We know that, again, he, for instance, began his day with reading a brief analysis of events in Ukraine and in the world and within Russia. Well, every president begins his or her day with this procedure. But the point is, what is in this briefing? What is in this briefing? We know that every U.S. president, not certain about Biden, but I'm almost guaranteed, they watch the news, they browse the web, they go online, they go and check. The advisors give them ideas, just basically just bringing the phone. Look, Mr. President, look what's going on there. So we learned about so-called CNN effect back in 1990s, reading about George Bush Sr. Allegedly, once again, allegedly, some of his advisors insisted that he was watching CNN every morning, and on certain occasions he would become so emotional he would just make a phone call saying, "Hey, look, I was just watching the news. Let's do something about that." So U.S. presidents are involved in active interaction with the media. Yes, media are partisan. Yes, media are definitely partisan. I was told that former Secretary of Defense Rumsfeld, late Rumsfeld, was always had a TV set in his office, and there was always Fox News right there. And I was in that office, and just I was shown that what's again this 24/7. That's a Fox News right there, and definitely Fox News is a network in the United States. We know it's which leans to the right, and they cover. It's not a secret. Yes, we know about that. So still the partisan news, and yet if the Fox News present information which is not pleasant to Republicans. Fox News had analysts and critical discussions about things that many Republicans don't like to hear, but they listen and analyze well and understand. But political leaders, I believe, like Putin and Xi, are completely isolated from or at least isolated, like Putin, from the realities of the world. And that's what we must take in consideration when we discuss their political reality and the possible actions. The lack of information, lack of feedback, and on agenda, on agenda which is projected from within. I can explore more on that even.
That would be great, because it sounds like media has a significant role in shaping the perception of any individual president. We can criticize that role. You can say that US media in general is very domestically centered, for instance, as opposed to BBC, which has a greater coverage of international affairs, and that comes with its own, inherent biases, one way, whichever way you push it. But it's domestic or more foreign-oriented media that will bring with itself certain types of perception of the reality. But the fact is, this dynamic, the fact that it exists at all, it sounds like it is a completely different relationship with the reality from what authoritarian and fairly isolated leaders do. And it seems like the authoritarian leaders, they may differ as personalities, and you can discuss their personality quirks, but in terms of style, they all seem to have a preference for this self for this confirmation bias of their own opinions. That seems to be a unifying factor, no matter what country you look at, and what you know. So how do we deal with the fact that we have, when you have a country that is itself illiberal, not particularly democratic, and the leader tends to only listen to confirmation bias type of reporting from whatever source? How can we possibly deal with them the same way we deal with leaders from democratic countries which have similar process to our own, even if the emphasis or focus or perspective is different?
No, one of many aspects of this answer, or it's a very complex question, of course, but the vast majority of political leaders in the West, or Japan and South Korea, and we talk about countries in which democracy is settled, India to a certain degree, of course, Australia, New Zealand, and others. Political leaders in those countries, they know that this is it: 2 years, 4 years, 5 years, and then what? And then the elections. And then no matter how much money you have, money matters, of course. It matters, of course. But no matter what, there will be somebody else, or will be 2 or 3 people who will challenge you, and your days are numbered. So therefore, that's if you do something that's most people dislike or disapprove of, or disapprove of. If you do something that's people think if undermines national security or people's well-being, people vote their pocketbooks. Well, you're out. That's it. You're out. So you can try to amend the constitution, you can try to buy elections, but you can try to do whatever you. Well, we know the things that just happen in some countries, including the United States, but you're out. And not only are you out, your reputation goes down, and future voters will not likely to vote for you again. What happened with Trump, for example. It's a few years ago. So that's one important point. So that's why this is fundamental difference. And nobody says, I don't want to be boring and repetitive, democracy is not the ideal form of governance, but repeating the old sayings referring to Churchill, but at least the most efficient than the previously, all other forms of governance. And of course, democracy is slow. It takes forever for us to make decisions. Democracy is combative. We can't find agreements. Look at this, what happened to previous Congress when Pelosi was challenged by young and some ambitious politicians, and then it took some time for her to reach a compromise. Now Republicans in turmoil, the same thing, because there's always this clash of ideas, always the struggle for yes, and power is the ability to make your decisions. If you think you're right, if you think that you're pure, if you think you can bring freedom, prosperity, and happiness to people, you want to have power. So it's just nothing wrong to have power in politics. And well, this is in autocracy is very simple. This you're the one. This you make decisions, and everybody is circling the wagon and just protecting you, because this is what they want to have. We have almost I wouldn't say identical histories. Never give us perfect examples, and it's never. Well, it's always just give us a rhyme in written, but it's never perfect examples. But the example of Shah of Iran, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, when he was terminally ill, his illness was concealed from him. His wife learned about his illness late, but just accidentally. And so, well, his advisors just would do everything possible to just essentially to govern and rule there before the regime collapsed. But the guy was terminally ill, and he didn't know about that. All the people around him knew, but well, instead of doing something, they continue. I believe that they did something to secure the savings and bonds and in dollars and in European currencies, in gold, and then they left the country. But the country, what happened to Iran? Look at this. Tremendous international complications and consequences for Iranian nation, for the whole world, for Israel, for all our allies. Just what happened there, because just the simple fact that that's one person, lack of information, terminal illness, and sort of a unwritten plot around him to keep things secret and continue to rule and reign, just hoping that maybe things will go away. They didn't go away for Shah of Iran. Irina.
To what extent do character assassination campaigns, real or perceived imaginary, even used as a blame, play a role in shaping these realities, both for undemocratic and democratic leaders? We have seen a lot spoken about it in the news, Republicans and Democrats blaming each other for their respective leaders' supposed lack of success due to the, conspiracies by their political enemies and character assassinations. We have seen leaders from around the world claim that they've been unfairly maligned by the media and foreign enemies and so forth. So to what extent, how do we calculate this blame game into the equation? To what extent, how can we separate media circus and deliberate, these political kind of recriminations from real facts and so forth?
We should distinguish, and you mentioned about character assassination, just one important thing, that there are criticisms and there are negative campaigns and attacks which have been with us within democracy for centuries. You look at the pamphlets and papers in 1800s and 1900s, and that was common. So to blame somebody, to just to call them inept policies, doomed to fail, and it's a normal process. And again, the point is just the language has changed a little bit, and then but still, once again about negative campaign, I opened a Newsweek magazine. Maybe those of you who don't know, the Newsweek was a really popular magazine. Just you buy every week or subscribe, and this just open, and it was a source of all good information and bad information. And this wasn't one of the top U.S. magazines, right? The weekly magazine. And I remember the cover when just of two presidential candidates. I think it was Michael Dukakis and George Bush were just throwing mud into the caricature in each other's face. Well, this is unprecedented. So back in the 80s, unprecedented campaign. Well, so this every 4 years we say unprecedented. So criticism are always been there, and criticism just sort of I hate to say, but it's a normal part of democratic politics. But character assassination is the use of personal aspects of our existence, of personal factors, and bring them to discussion and insert them in discussion of policies. For instance, instead of saying, "Oh, your policies are not really good," I say, "Oh, how about you having a legitimate child when you were 25?" And you say, "What does it have to do with this person's policies today?" Well, you had a child and you didn't marry, and well, how about that child? So there we go. See, just and in the minds of supporters, it's people just will say, "No, it doesn't make any sense. What does it have to do with anything?" To others, whoa, this is crucial. Remember Bill Clinton? It's a maybe classical case. So for his supporters, the facts were overwhelming. He confessed, yes, he had an extramarital affair in the White House, yes, and many other facts were mounting. And for his supporters, the argument was, "Look, he's a good president. Come on, just forget about it. Yes, just who doesn't have those transgressions?" But for the opponents was, "Wow, how come this guy is still president? What did he what he did to women? Look at that, what he did." And by the way, today, if Clinton was, if he were president today, he would not probably survive as president, because it's important. The political climate changes, and Me Too movement and others, and political climate, just the ups and downs and move. But it's important to understand political climate. Being divorced in U.S. politics in 1960s was basically it's a death sentence to you as a politician. That's it. You just can't succeed. Today, probably it's an asset. An asset. In other countries, by the way, this is could be a factor. I do remember during a campaign in Moldova. Moldova, it's a wonderful country, a bit small, of course, in Europe, and when Sandu, she's president right now, she was running for the office. One of the major attacks were launched against her during last weeks before elections was that by her opponents. How come she's unmarried, she's single, and she hoped to run the country being a single, not a wife, not a mother, and she wants to run the country, and it worked. And it worked because some people began to talk about, "Oh yeah, we need to be somebody who has experience at least running a family." So, but if you think about it, say it's absurd. A young, successful, efficient, talented woman running for office and winning and leading in polls, and then you say, "Oh, you've never been a mother, you've never been a wife." And I don't think you can run. See, you allegedly attach something negative associated with the character and her ability to be president. So, what was done there, and again, what was done there, just so the advice was given to mobilize young people, especially young women, which exactly because they were really offended by this, and there are lots of 20, 30-year-olds who were voters in Moldova. We believe they were mobilized because, wow, this is incredible. So they use this argument to discredit a person. Maybe I didn't want to vote for her. Now I will, because out of principle for that. So the ability to select character assassination and select right and wrong is extremely difficult today, and it's definitely all based on our political ideological beliefs, our identity. And in all honesty, as a scientist, I would say that essentially what we are studying is a small percentage of our population, either US or Canada or France. It depends on country, depends on elections. Roughly, referring to US, I can say that approximately, approximately 30% of people definitely will vote Democratic, no matter what. Definitely, the 30% just simply go and just basically crush D. About 20% definitely vote Republican. They go to voting polling station, just take a ballot, and just regardless of weather and either the hail or storm or maybe the Dracula runs for office. No, Dracula, okay, it's R. Just I'll vote for Dracula. That doesn't really matter. So it's about 50% will vote anyway. Others will vote on issues, and now it depends what can you do for me. So increasingly suburban population, big cities, New York, Washington, Chicago, Los Angeles, will lean Democrats for these issues. The small town population, working class and peasantry and areas, farmers, increasingly vote Republican. It's amazing. This is how it's shifted past 20, 25 years. So we can say those leaning population at maybe 30%. So we deal with essentially 20% of those who either have no idea or simply open-minded or simply disinterested. And that's what we try to persuade. And that's why character assassination works, because if you scare 1, 2, 3, 5% of people, they half of them would go and vote. Look at the results in Georgia, for example. Just thousands, just few thousands of votes decided the fate of U.S. Senate. Almost. Look at those other elections. So therefore, character assassination, negative campaigns work because they are effective, and they affect these magic 10% of population who are more gullible, or at least that they can be influenced, because others less likely to be influenced. And this is basically just whatever you do, no matter how much you try or how much smear this you put in your campaign, not you, but what the politicians do that. So we will not accept that. However, there is this percentage that will work. That's will listen, and these numbers will work, especially in swing states, including Virginia, including Pennsylvania, including many other states, but not, I believe, not in New York and California, which definitely will vote Democratic. Not in Alabama or Utah would definitely vote the Republican in next elections. Just we know how it works in U.S.
Amazingly enough, amidst this climate where one side completely disregards when it's doing the character assassination, but is fully aware when it's done by its opponents, we have a great deal of not only media freedom, but I would say media diversity, access to social media, international media, whatever blogs, whatever forum you want to say, we have it. We have access to it, and we don't have anyone blocking us from access. And yet there seems to be a greater susceptibility to distrust conspiratorial mindsets and uninformed or biased kind of preconceived decision making based on dubious sources rather than any sort of process of verification. Amidst all of this, there is a new initiative associated with some of the CARP founding members related to countering propaganda, including, of course, Russian propaganda. In the past, this was the purview of the US government. In the 80s, there was a US government initiative to fight Soviet propaganda. Now we're seeing that process being decentralized and moving out of State Department and its various agencies into the private sector, into the academia. Why do you think that is, and how do you hope to reach the audience? What do you think academia can contribute in that regard?
Irina, we historically lagging behind as professors, as researchers, because we addressing past events, we study established facts, and we are comfortable in our cozy offices. And honestly, it's so easy to render my judgment sitting here in Fairfax County, 30 miles away from Washington, D.C., near the lake in a warm house, and make decisions about the future of the world and how everything is bad and how everything good according to my personal point of view. I understand. I'm trying to look condescending. I understand. So many of my colleagues are in the field, they work, they travel, they write. I understand. But most of us have very comfortable life and we are lagging behind. Your question is really, well, I would say powerful because it makes us think about what we can do and what should do. And I think the most important thing today is our turn to the media, social media, webinars, YouTube shows, shorties. Don't know much about TikTok. I know, but not about the power of TikTok. I still researching that. But the Facebook for older people and for more professional, LinkedIn for professionals, Instagram for those who are inclined to just see visual images, Twitter, Zoom discussions, YouTube, what things you do right now. The more we do, the more frequently we do, the more the larger audience we can reach. Because I can publish a paper and I'll be praised by 55 of my colleagues from US and 25 from all over the world. And so I'll be happy, my dean is happy, but okay, what's the impact? Well, it's a great impact. I know there's 100 professors like you. Well, this is the same pool of individuals who like each other messages. We agree. We agree there must be peace on earth. We agree that the Russian propaganda must be stopped. But what can we do to change this? So that's why I believe today this is the only way for us is to use social networks, YouTube, Zoom, and those seminars, and again, and also use the contemporary language, especially those short videos and short posts and short discussions. And yeah, long discussions are important, but also talk about the influence younger individuals. In the past, Irina, we could travel to Russia. I could, and you go there, you conduct seminars, you talk to students. And I thought that time, those 10 years ago, 15 years ago, even 5 years ago, I thought I could make a difference because there were, yeah, I was allowed to speak. 40, 50 people in the audience, and some conferences I attended that's by invitation, and it's going there and speaking just from my bottom of my heart. And today I can't. Simply, I may not, I cannot, because first of all, I'll be arrested right away in Russia, and second, because they will not let me in because I don't have a visa to go there. So that's why the only way is for us to do something from here. I know that those who oppose the war today, we are united in one. On one issue, yes, we oppose the war, but yes, we have many different views about what to do next and how to do and what to do. That's why we need to start our dialogue among us, U.S.-born experts, Soviet Union-born experts, Ukraine-born experts, Eastern Europe, Central Europe, just those of us who care about propaganda and counter-propaganda and precious times and wars, especially the war which was just ongoing today in Ukraine is just mind-boggling. Just we're celebrating New Year and the bombs of just being just dropped in Kiev and the Ukrainian cities. So so this is what I support this your incentive initiative, and so definitely we need to do more and also try new styles and new ways of disseminating our information. Just if they could do it the other side, so we can do better because we have bigger hearts, we have a pure goal in our souls.
Substantively, what tools and theories do you think can be most successful in the current political climate to reach, first of all, the people who are still either neutral or uninformed or otherwise haven't taken a position. And second, people who have already been affected by propaganda. One of the biggest, most successful propaganda points that I have seen is moving the goalposts from talking about the invasion and the lives lost and the impact on the civilian populations and things like that, to talking about government corruptions and whether Zelensky is a pawn of Biden or whether Biden is a pawn of Zelensky and so on and so forth. Obviously, distraction from the main military and political discussion points. So what tools, what theories can be introduced and how to the general public to combat these talking points that obviously work due to government distrust, due to other factors, due to underlying economic isolationist predispositions and general tendency to project domestic issues on foreign conflicts?
Irina, I am both pessimistic, really pessimistic, and somewhat optimistic. Why I'm pessimistic? Because at least at this moment, we're talking 2023, I believe that most people within the Russian Federation are incapable of change, at least on the surface. They support the war. They have this, sorry to say, this sadistic, gloating, vengeful attitude towards anything foreign, especially Ukrainian. It's deeply anti-Semitic, racist, and sexist. I just stated clearly. This is what I think most Russians today endorse. It has been with them for many years, as my colleagues say. Hey, you forget that there were racist and anti-Semitic and sexist all their lives, but they were suppressed. Now, since the president is openly, well, maybe not sexist, but at least racist, anti-Semitic in so many ways, and well, just the whole nation can do that. So that's why I follow the advice of my late mentor from Michigan State University, Vladimir Shlepentov, who told me some time ago, Eric, don't bother. Please understand. Don't, as a scientist, don't bother. You will not make a change. It will not make a difference. However, there are younger people, and there are those who are forced to be silent today in Russia, who are forced to just shut up, who are forced because they lose their jobs, lose their freedom if they speak. They're generally scared. I understand them. Those individuals are not hopeless. They are those who can listen to us, and they do listen to us. And follow us. And the more we speak, and the more we become available to them, and the less condescending we are, and we're willing to listen to them. Although I don't believe that's, I hear that every war has two sides. The war in Ukraine doesn't have two sides. But even we say, look, let's listen. We're ready to listen to you. Tell us what. This works psychologically, but many people are stubborn to change their point of view. But if we give them a chance to explain, they understand the weaknesses of their position and become more, I would say, cooperative. And this is the people, younger people, and those people who well, are afraid, and they're silent because they're scared, afraid. Those people that we can address our message to and talk to them. But with most Russians, I'm sorry to say that it's hopeless. I give up.
What about Americans? We are seeing increasing polarization politically, increasing distrust of authority by a cross-section of population, and quite frankly, the regular labels of left and right and Republicans and Democrats in a lot of cases no longer apply very strictly, because there is a growing isolationist sentiment that crosses boundaries. There are growing economic concerns that are not necessarily, subscribed to any one issue. There are concerns about, there are all sorts of things that are uniting particular elements of different groups that are not strictly, that would never have seen eye to eye, say, 10 years ago. How do you combat their susceptibility to foreign propaganda and to this sort of influence?
Well, I stated 10 years ago and even 15 years ago about that polarization is health for democracy. But yes, I know the numbers of Pew Research and Gallup polls does numbers about our divisions in the United States. And We see the past 15 years that the gap is widening between people who consider themselves to the left and to the right, and there's a tendency. There's a tendency compared to 15 years ago when there were more overlap between Republicans and Democrats, between left and the people on the left and the right, and others. I would say wait and see. I still think, maybe I'm in minority, but I still think that divisions still are helpful because they allow somehow to reach the point of sort of a semi-collapse, and then the ideas will merge again. When people will get sick and tired of their polarizing views and they try to find a compromise. I'm still hopeful that it could happen, because polarization, any polarization is healthy for democracy, I repeat. However, the deep divisions are not necessarily, because they become antagonistic in a society. But still, I think give us 2 more years. Let's wait until next presidential election, see how things are and who will be the next president. And then we see whether we need to be hopeful or just ring the bells. Look, we need to do something because we are just being pulled apart too far.
But
I see the taxi is waiting for me. I need to leave
sorry.
right now.
Thank you so much for joining us.
So I will definitely do it again. So I'm sorry to get my
For
limitation.
sure, yeah. There's a lot more to discuss on this issue. We will see whether by next election, whether the messaging from the future leadership can overcome all these divisions, or whether it may be too late and a lot of the propaganda may affect who ends up being elected to begin with. So that remains to be seen.
I hope not. I hope we have people who understand, and there are some quite pretty promising candidates. But we'll discuss it later, of course.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Irina. Thanks so much.
For those watching us, this was the Washington Outsider Report. Our guest today was Dr. Shiraev, and we were discussing the role of academia in combating propaganda and addressing current challenges in politics. Stay tuned for the program next week. For those who joined us for the first time, my name is Irina Zuckerman, editor-in-chief of the Washington Outsider. Thank you so much for watching.